Joining us now on the line is Jim Carafano, the Heritage Foundation Vice President, Foreign and Defense Policy Studies and Director of the International Studies at the Heritage Foundation. We want to talk to him, of course, about what's going on in Iraq, what's going on in Syria, and the battle against ISIS. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, good to be with you.
All right, there were 15 simultaneous attacks on Kurdish forces in northern Iraq on Monday. And the Kurdish government officials there say this was a fierce attempt by ISIS to regain territory that it has lost, or perhaps take new territory that it never had. So how's it going in the battle against ISIS?
Well, I got to tell you, from this perspective, it certainly doesn't seem, well, it took them 3 months to take the country. The president said it's going to take 3 years to take it back. Boy, that just doesn't seem reasonable. I got to tell you, every day that ISIS exists, or I think the potential for a larger sectarian war escalates, and the potential for the country to fragment just becomes much more realistic. So the thing about these guys is ISIS is they don't seem to be stupid. I mean, they seem to be trying to remain on the offensive and looking for opportunities, but not overreaching. So, for example, down in Baghdad, where we know that they'd have a tough time kind of pushing south into the Shia territories, instead they've been conducting a very, very aggressive terrorist campaign in Baghdad and other places to kind of keep people on their toes. So what they're really trying to look like, it really is kind of consolidate their position in Syria. Remember, they went into Iraq originally because they were having a tough time in Syria. Now seeing them on the offensive really in both countries is really kind of disturbing.
That's sort of interesting. You say where they can. That's what I'm reading here, is that you're saying that where they can, it's traditional warfare. Where they cannot control the territory because of the lay of the land or the overwhelming forces that are there, it's asymmetrical.
Right, that's right, and they're practiced at both. So, for example, one of the things we saw is even in areas where they gave ground back to the Kurds, one of the things is they left a lot of improvised explosive devices behind. So even when other people take territory back, they're making them pay a price for that. So what you really see in this group is the best practices of really 2 decades of terrorism and insurgency.
Jim Carafano, I'm seeing a lot of people making the case for deploying special operations forces, very specifically and very targeted to take out some of the command centers of ISIS. They're saying these airstrikes are not enough. We need to get some of our guys on the ground. There are special ops guys, and they'll be able to effectively take them out. I wonder where you fall on that argument. And also, the second question is, once you take them out, then what? I mean, that really is the big question.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have ground forces take territory back from ISIS and hold it, and the best forces to do that are really the Kurds themselves and the Syrian military. And I think the longer these guys linger, the tougher it is to get the Iraqi military back into the fight. So I'm for whatever breaks the momentum of these guys and helps the Iraqis get back into the fight. The problem is I don't think time is on our side.
Well, many are saying that the Kurds are the best ones to take up this fight. You just mentioned them. Should we be arming them and being more? Should we be more involved in the Kurdish military's efforts here? And if so, are we hesitant to do that because of the sensibilities of the Turks?
Well, not just the Turks, but also the Iraqis. I don't think there's a lot of option here. I mean, I think the Kurds are willing to fight, and what they can do is important and valuable, and I think we need to fully support them. But look, you got to be realistic here. Even supporting the Kurds isn't going to get you at the end of the day. The Kurds are willing to fight for every inch of Kurdistan. When it comes to liberating the Sunni Triangle, I'm not so sure the Kurds are going to be all up for that.
That's not our fight. Yeah,
right, exactly.
You're on your own down there. Well, let me ask you this. And we seem to have a reluctance, of course, to put troops on the ground to fight the battle against ISIS. And as you said, they took over the country in 3 months, and the way things are going, it's going to take 3 years to sort of repel them and push them back. But we don't have a moment's hesitation about sending 4,000 troops into Western Africa to fight the Ebola crisis.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the logic here is it's just scary. I mean, the president has called Iraq basically a humanitarian mission. And on the other hand, he called the deployment to West Africa a national security mission, which I think absolutely totally has it backwards. I got to tell you, the one thing that annoys me about and again, I go back to the administration. They complain they're getting criticized. Well, a lot of it is their fault, and rightly so. Look, the military is just part of what you need to do. I agree that helping those countries break the back of their outbreaks is key to preventing the global transmission of the disease. It's worth doing, but it's not. It's more than just what the military does, and it's not even primarily what the military is doing that's really important. But instead of talking about how we have an organized national effort and an organized international effort to do this as efficiently and quickly as possible, everybody's arguing about whether we should put troops on the ground.
Right.
But you know what? It's our president's fault because he created these stupid debates.
Well, see, now when I look at this situation, I go, okay, so we're putting troops on the ground in Western Africa because there's a threat that Ebola could become a worldwide pandemic, and that's in our national security interest. But in Iraq, we also have a national security interest in not letting ISIS advance. That's a threat to the homeland as well. Why is it appropriate in one case to fight the Ebola virus, but not appropriate in the other case where we have another threat to the homeland that's just as serious?
Because you've gotten to the heart of the challenge of foreign policy and defense decision making in this White House, which is it does go through a political prism first. And then it goes through a national security assessment later. And that's why you get these kind of screwy backwards things coming out of the White House.
Our guest is Jim Carafano, Heritage Foundation's vice president. He focuses on foreign and defense policy studies. And real fast, we've got a terrorist amongst us here in the District of Columbia, Ahmed Abu Khattala. He is the guy who has been now indicted with a 18-count grand jury indictment about the attacks of the Benghazi annex. He pled not guilty. He's got his public defender. I'm guessing, I know that this is a politicized Justice Department, but they're not bringing these counts and these charges against this guy unless they know they've got a rock-solid case, right? Please tell me.
Yeah, I kind of hope you're right, but I've always had a concern in this case that they did this because they were getting a lot of criticism on not getting somebody to responsible for Benghazi. So all of a sudden, they pop this guy and they bring him over here. I'm just really hoping that they have their ducks in order. I wonder sometimes.
All right, thanks, Jim Carafano. I wish you were a little more confident with that. I was hoping you'd assuage me.
I'm very confident that these guys put politics first on every national security decision making they do.
Always a pleasure, Jim. Thanks for joining us.
See you, bud.